Up in the show, we take you to Moonee Valley for one of the biggest steeple races of the winter season, the $120,000 Hiskin Steeple. The Tour de France, and with Le Monde out of contention, can Spaniard Miguel Indurain maintain his overall lead? We look at the mighty efforts of the Moroni sisters, who this week crossed the English Channel to break all sorts of records. And we meet a pocket dynamo set to make his mark in world snooker. Plus all the football action with some do-or-die matches coming up in rugby league and AFL.
So try and stay with us. As Kim said, there's plenty more to come. Time to talk racing. Keith Hillier's in Darwin for the Darwin Cup. He's going to enjoy the week. And Australia's leading race caller has joined us, Brian Martin. Good to see you again, BM.
Good to be with you, Bruce. How are you going?
I'm going very well. Well, what a remarkable race yesterday. The Hiskin Steeplechase, a race that Budding Hackett, I reckon as a race caller, you would have given up on the home turn.
Well, he'd enjoyed a good run through the race, but at about the 800-metre mark, he started to struggle over on the rail, and World Bank had sort of sailed away, had Kashaf beaten, etc. And, you know, it was probably about 20s on World Bank, 6 or 7 lengths in front of the last fence. And you've got to feel for trainer Peter Fell, who's a part owner on the horse. He had $78,000 there in his hand, and down it's gone.
Just sitting in the kick and falling at the last. Hurdlers in steeplechase races have got a very good record. They go at a much quicker clip in a hurdle race, and if you can jump, you've got a chance. And I guess Budding Hackett, he had trialled all right. Must have been one of the chances then.
Yes, he was, and as I say, in transit, I thought to myself, well, in the run, you're going to be the horse to beat. He hadn't spent a penny going through the race, but he started to labour, and as you say, the hurdler was able to sprint away through the ground, and it was a race that changed so dramatically. So when he went down World Bank, it looked as though Kashaf or Georgie's son, even Lord of Oakbank, would fight the race out, but Budding Hackett just came with a wet sail.
We must mention Stark Count, who's had no luck at all. He's been down at his last 3. He was favourite again yesterday and went down in the first lap.
Yeah, his only problem is he doesn't jump too well.
No, it's a bit of a worry when you've got to get around them. This really is, in many ways, like the Cox Plate of steeplechase racing, the Hiskins. It's one of the highlights of the year. Let's go and see this remarkable race. World Bank looks all over a winner coming to the last.
700 to go. World Bank still doing it well. Coming to what will be the third last jump. He's about 3 lengths to Kashaf. He cleared that safely. Kashaf is a study to close the gap a bit now as they come up towards the second last fence. They're about 8 lengths clear. Lord of Oakbank on the outside of Budding Hackett. And then there's a break to Georgie's son, followed next by Monsieur Chapeau. World Bank is the leader at the second last jump. Still about 3 lengths to Kashaf, who's creeping a bit closer, if anything, in a long gap to Budding Hackett as they make the home turn. But World Bank still with a nice long lead. He's moved away again about 3.5 lengths to Kashaf. His rider went for the whip. 6 lengths away, Georgie's son, followed by Budding Hackett. And World Bank is still travelling strongly as they straighten up. 1 fence left to jump. Looks to have the dominant Hiskin steeplechase, and he's keeping as he comes to the last one. World Bank with a big break. Kashaf is second. Georgie's son, here's the last fence. He's down! He's down! And this leaves Kashaf in front. World Bank fell at the last. Kashaf tackled by Budding Hackett, flying home. Budding Hackett has got up to score from Kashaf and Georgie's son, and behind them Lord of Oakbank in a sensational finish.
Well, it was a sensational finish. Full marks to the jockey too of Budding Hackett for not giving up, because I think he would have on the home turn under normal circumstances.
Well, that's right. It's never over, is it? But Bruce, you look at those horses and see how far they had to go. But the good news was all jockeys and all horses got up and walked away from the action.
Well, that's terrific. It was a very good Hiskins, and well, how have you found the jumping races this year? Do you think it's been of a reasonable standard?
Yes, they have. It was a pity Believable didn't go around yesterday. He picked up a virus. I think the way the race was run at Believable would have been the horse finishing as hard as Budding Hackett. We'll never know, but his national win was fantastic. It
was terrific. Also, maybe an element of luck there, because I thought both Georgie's son and Stark Count were going pretty well.
They had big leads. Yeah.
Huge leads, and then Vinciamo was left with it, but he won the Australian and also the Grand National. The other, I thought, most interesting race around Australia yesterday was the Lightning Stakes in Adelaide, a race for 2- and 3-year-olds over 1,000 metres. Tremendous interest in the reappearance of Durbridge. Now, we'll be talking to Jim Bowler very shortly about Durbridge and what weight he has in the Melbourne Cup.
He bounced and he travelled well. He got back a little bit, and he was going home all right at the finish. I thought he was probably entitled to go home a little bit harder. But the runner had cleaned him up, and he'd be on target.
I've got a bit of a theory. Having watched the race, I feel that he was probably a little too close to them to be flashing home. He may have been better off to drop out and then run on, and he would have finished in about the same position.
Sure. The winner begun, Bruce, coming to the turn, travelling so easily, looked as though he'd have an easy win, but he struggled to get past Zephyrat up the straight. I thought he was entitled to win a little easier.
Yeah, I don't think he's won first up before.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's now with David Hayes. He's been with Peter. No doubt Peter's helping out Peter with David Hayes. He's a good horse. Reminds me a bit of Rodolfo Begon. I reckon he may develop into a wonderful 7-furlong horse at Flemington, a horse that will just travel on the pace and run fast times.
Well, we might set him for the Linlithgow Stakes on Oaks Day.
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
Okay, there's a tip. Gee, Keith should be here. Let's go to the Lightning, and we will see Begon just get up and watch for Durbridge in the pink colours. Good run from a Melbourne Cup point of view, but maybe he'll be looking at races like the Cox Plate.
Down the side they go, and it's Zephyrat to the 600 on the inside. A nose in front of Street Brawler. Begon is right there with them. 3 lengths away, Noble Lancer, followed there by Life of the Party, and Mahasin winds up. Then further back, Immortal Hand, Durbridge not far off them. Then Chorus Girl, and last of all, as they straighten Sun Walk. At the top of the running, it's Zephyrat, collared by Begon. Begon out wide, raced up to Zephyrat. Street Brawler done with Noble Lancer runs on well. Then Mahasin, followed by Life of the Party. Durbridge behind those. It's Zephyrat and Begon at the 200. Here's a duel. Begon the outside, Zephyrat the inside. Begon gradually wearing down Zephyrat. Further back, Noble Lancer running after the pair of them. Begon in front. Noble Lancer, Zephyrat stick on well, but Begon in front, and Begon has Hush Puppied at home. Got there narrowly from, I think, Zephyrat just in front of Noble Lancer.
Yes, good win. As you say, he was going to win very easily on the home turn, Begon, but he's all or nothing, you know. He's had 16 starts and won 9 and hasn't run a placing. He either wins or runs down the track, but... nice run, Durbridge. Having another look, what did you think? Yeah,
working home quite satisfactorily at the end. Up fairly early for a sort of a spring campaign. We're still the last days of July.
Yeah, it is interesting. I thought he could have started in a different race, perhaps like the Spring Stakes. This is a bit of a hustle and bustle. A $600,000 race in Doomben yesterday, the Breeders' Classic for 2-year-olds. Brian York's had shocking luck with this race. Last year he had a choice of 3 rides for Bruce McLaughlin, pulled the wrong rein. Yesterday he did the same thing, rode the horse that finished 4th.
Right.
God's Prospect getting the money, $250,000 first prize.
It's fantastic money, isn't it?
Oh, it's enormous for 2-year-olds that are not of the highest quality. Good finish again yesterday. Let's have a look at this $600,000 race from Doomben with God's Prospect coming home.
They're packing up as they approach the corner. They've got 400 metres to go. Irish Plains heads for home about a neck in front of Pardon, coming away from the rails at exactly the right time. And Earhart shot him to the front at the 300. Pardon got away from Irish Plains to lead by a length or so. Lyric Opera under pressure in 3rd place. Mad Regard, God's Prospect down the outside. Pardon in front. Lyric Opera, God's Prospect is flying. God's Prospect, Lyric Opera go to Pardon, and God's Prospect has got the money. God's Prospect first. 2nd, Lyric Opera. Tight 3rd, Dutch Boy flew home. He's in a photo with Madrigar and Pardon.
Won't see any of those in the Escott Vale Stakes, will we, in September?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
No, those horses are running for big money, $250,000. Stylish Century was to have run yesterday in Brisbane. He was pulled out of the race, I think, because Dick Monaghan didn't have a trainer's licence at that stage, and he may run next week in Sydney. But what was interesting was that Rendu ran yesterday. He'd been 15 months in San Francisco. He had abscess on the lining of his heart, this horse. He's been a very good horse here, and he's come back. He's been beating Stylish Century in track gallops, and yesterday he was sent out 8-1 and finished right down the tail of the field.
Yes, it's interesting to see a horse come back from the States and race here, an Australian horse that's gone across there, and Stylish Century seems to get a lot of publicity, doesn't he?
Well, he does. I think it's got a lot to do with his connections.
I think so, yes.
And he's been a wonderful horse, and we hope he does come back, and it'll be interesting to see if he does run next week in Sydney. Let's go and have a look at the flying handicap yesterday. Rendu was an 8-1 chance. The favourite was Gypsy Rogue. Roman Senator, who we saw beat Heavenly Knight on Sportsworld a couple of weeks ago, successful again. He's a pretty good horse.
Coming down the side, 650 metres to go. Roman Senator starting to sneak away from them again. Roman Senator 2 in front of Olympus, followed by Larabon, Gypsy Rogue, then Sculptured Arch. Further back came Fabulous Fashions, then Chatelaine, and Rendu now coming to the outside. He's gone for home on Roman Senator. They straighten up 350 metres out. He's 2 in front of Olympus, followed by Gypsy Rogue, then Sculptured Arch, Larabon down the outside, and Rendu's running on. Roman Senator shifting his ground a little bit. 200 metres out, Roman Senator, 1.5 in front. In 2nd place, Gypsy Rogue, followed by Olympus and then Rendu, but it's all Roman Senator. Gypsy Rogue making up ground at the end, but Roman Senator's too strong, and he wins it by a length on Gypsy Rogue.
He's won 17 out of 35. He's a really good, handy horse. Rendu down the track, and it'll be interesting to see if he makes a full recovery and runs in the big races like the Gadsden later in the year.
Yeah, he may be struggling looking at that, I'd say.
He's getting a bit older, and it is unusual for Australian horses to come back from the United States, as you mentioned. They normally go the other way. He's going to be top weight for the Melbourne Cup.
Well, I suppose it's got to be something like Better Loosen Up. Yeah. Although he won't run in it, but he has been entered. I'd say that he's got to go to top weight.
Well, we're going to find out in about 2 minutes, Brian, because Jim Bowler, the man who's had the task yet again of putting together the, I think it was 489 nominations and getting the right weights for them, will join us after the break, and we'll let you know who's top weight for the 1991 Melbourne Cup. Welcome back. Jim Bowler has joined us, the man in the hot seat for the last couple of months. How would you like to get 489 or 490 nominations there, and you've got to weight them all for the Melbourne Cup? It'll be some job. Gee, Jim, you look younger than ever. Welcome back.
Thanks, Bruce.
We see you once a year on Sportsworld. Tougher than normal or about the same?
Yes, just as tough, Bruce. Different areas of toughness this year. Last year, a very strong New Zealand contingent. As resulted in the Cup, the first 8 horses over the line, 5 New Zealanders and 2 imported horses. But this year, a different type of race this year.
A lot of imported horses. A few of them have had quite a bit of publicity. It must be tough to weigh up form in England and France and Ireland and put it together with Australian form.
And Russia this year, my word.
Yeah, that'll be even tougher.
That's right. But we're getting to know more about them, Bruce, as we go along. We're building a portfolio of them. You've got a horse like Nay Rizzy, who probably a little bit unlucky in his Caulfield Cup and certainly would have been competitive in a Melbourne Cup with 55 in his year. And then you see the Brashees and El Mahib that Time Form and other European people rate just a little bit better. So you've got benchmarks to work with. And that's, I think, fair to everybody.
I'll talk to you about Brashees shortly. Brian, over the years, there have been very few horses that have been able to double up. In fact, 3 of them in consecutive years, and only 4 have won it twice. Archer, Rain Lover and Think Big. Kingston Rule, his win last year was tremendous. He had 53. Do you fancy him at all this year? He's had a setback.
Well, I'm interested to see what Jim has given Kingston Rule, because if we go back to 74, 75, we had Think Big winning 74, going up 5.5 kilos the next year and winning it again. So he had 58.5 the next year. So 53 last year for Kingston Rule. What have we done with this horse this year?
Well, of course, Think Big went from a 4 to a 5-year-old. He had that weight for age transition to negotiate.
Sure.
Kingston Rule goes up 4 kilos to 57, and I think that's extremely fair, given the fact he's so lightly raced.
Yep.
He ran a course record. He beat a very good horse in the Phantom to win his Cup. And, of course, he's only had the 3 distance starts for a Moonee Valley Cup win, a Melbourne Cup win, and arguably could have even won the Dalgety to make him unbeaten in distance races.
Absolutely. Now, Bart Cummings has just about got this horse on the track and back again. There's his win now in the Shadow Roll as he goes to the front. The Phantom, for a couple of strides here, Bruce and Jim, looked as though he may just get Kingston Rule. I wonder if it was the lack of a run that beat the Phantom. He'd missed a race going into the Melbourne Cup.
It may well have been that, Brian, but he's not there this year, and Kingston Rule is nominated. And one thing that a handicapper must do is take no notice of setbacks or tendons or anything like that. We're here today to weight 490 horses on their best form. We can't change our mind, the connections can.
Will you be, Jim, I was going to say, will you be surprised? I won't ask you that if Kingston Rule wins. What I would ask you, how would you compare that win in record time to some of the other wins that you've had in the last 10 years while you've been a handicapper?
Up there with some of the good ones, Bruce, because the horse was so lightly raced and he improved so much through that. There was no reason to suspect that he hasn't even peaked yet.
OK, 57 for Kingston Rule. Durbridge, we're going to take a look at the AJC Derby win. A good performance, a brilliant ride by Greg Hall here. He beat a couple of horses, Cool Reception and Mountain Rule, who also may figure. Now, I know you take a lot of notice of derbies, Jim. They're the yardstick for you. Right. What have you done with Durbridge?
Well, Durbridge gets 54.5, which is 2.5 under weight for age. Some interesting runs here to watch, Brian and Bruce. Mountain Rule gets up to run 3rd here behind Cool Reception, and the horses running 4th and 5th, Garter, King and Maiden, and Strapping from New Zealand. Now, Strapping was a little bit unlucky in the St Leger in New Zealand, and they're the ones, when you set the marks for the top 4-year-olds, the Durbridge and Fire Oaks, etc., then you have to quantify the marks below them. You know, a maiden like Garter King, how does he rate against a horse like Durbridge and Strapping from New Zealand?
So a maiden like Fire Oak going into the Derby.
Well, that's
quite
right.
Of the VRC Derby.
Yeah. Interesting enough, I set Fire Oak's weight at 54, a little bit below Durbridge, and then I Friday afternoon went back and got Kevin Ryan's weights and just had a thumb through. Savoy won the Derby as a maiden. Yes. Kevin rated him 8 stone 7, which equals 54. So we're on track there.
Do you ever change? If Durbridge had won yesterday, Jim, brilliantly, would have you reassessed his weight at that stage? Do you draw the line, do you?
Not at 1,000 metres, Bruce. I look at form for the Cup at around about 2,000 metres and upwards for the 4-year-olds and 2,300 metres and upwards for the 5-year-olds.
OK, let's look at the Sydney Cup, which is another a big 2-mile race in Australia. A horse called Just a Dancer successful. He was favourite for the Melbourne Cup last year at one stage. He had feet problems. He won this race with 52. He then went on and won the Brisbane Cup with 54. What have you done with him, Jim?
Well, Just a Dancer takes 56.5. Now, this is where the strength of the older horses for us lies, I think. There's Castletown getting home to run 2nd there. Now, Castletown and Just a Dancer have met 5 times. Castletown has beaten Just a Dancer 4 out of the 5 times. The only time that Just a Dancer beat Castletown, was in that Sydney Cup with a 4 kilo weight differential. So in the Melbourne Cup, Castletown takes 57 and Just a Dancer 56.5 because he won the Brisbane Cup after that.
OK, let's go to the South Australian Derby. A horse that I think has a terrific future and has done very well. Shiva's Revenge. He went on to run second in the Adelaide Cup behind Ideal Centreman with 51. How have you lined him up?
Well, he goes 53.5, 3.5 underweight for age. I thought the real mark for Shiva's Revenge was in the Victoria St Leger, where I thought he showed great character in beating Grooming, who was coming off an open company win at the stage. Interestingly, a 4-year-old hasn't won the Melbourne Cup since '82, Gurner's Lane. Gurner's Lane won the VRC St Leger, AJC St Leger double, and then Shiva's Revenge went on to Adelaide. He had to win the South Australian Derby. He was just better than them, I thought. And I thought his run in the Adelaide Cup was very, very good. We were talking about Greg Hall's ride a moment ago. Harry White's ride on Ideal Sentiment was just absolutely superb in that race.
He rated the horse very well.
He did.
Brian Dorset Downs has been favourite in early markets before the weights came out. He won the Queensland Derby. We'll take a look at this victory. How do you rate him, say, with Shiva's Revenge and Durbridge from a Derby point of view?
I think they're a little bit stronger, personally, watching the races. I think Shiva's Revenge, the way he performed in our St Leger and the Derby, and then he's very, very good run in the Adelaide Cup. I think he's probably just a notch ahead of Dorset Downs at the stage.
What did you do with Dorset Downs, Jim?
Same weight as Shiva's Revenge. I don't think there's much between them. I take Brian's point, but I don't think there's that much between them, Brian. Adelaide and Brisbane, there wouldn't be much between the two. They're just a bit probably below Sydney and Melbourne.
Sure.
And I thought a tremendous training effort by Tommy Smith. He took this horse out of New Zealand, hadn't raced from December through till May, produced him at 1835 first up, got the money, got it again in the Grand Prix, got it again in the Derby.
Yeah, so, fantastic training.
So I don't think there's much between them. Shiva's has won 6 out of 11, the other one's won 4 out of 12. They've both probably reached a level just below the top 3-year-olds, so I rated them both the same.
What do you do with a horse like Grooming? Now, there was little between, about a neck between he and Shiva's Revenge, and 10 lengths to the third horse in the St Leger.
Good comment. Obviously, there's not much between them after Flemington.
Sure.
Now, once Shiva's Revenge goes to Adelaide, he must take something for the Derby and the Adelaide Cup performance, like Just a Dash, who went on from that race as well. But is it fair to drag Grooming up with him? So you must quantify that in relation.
Would they be about 3 kilos apart?
Well, there's 2 between them, 53.5 and 51.5. Sure. I thought that was fair enough in the wash-up.
OK, let's see who is the top weight. No prizes for guessing. Better Loosen Up, 61. Superimposed, 60. Rough Habit, who had a marvellous campaign in Queensland, 57.5. Citizen, 57.5. Brashy, who's one of the most interesting imported horses we've had for years, at 57. Castletown and Kingston Rule at 57. Over the Page, Al Mahib, another stablemate of Brashy in the Hayes, 56.5. Just a Dancer, 56.5. And we've picked out some interesting ones, including Wayu Pao, who won a couple of St Ledgers, 51.5. Well,
it's interesting to look at these two imported horses, Brashy and Al Mahib, from Mark Tum's stable, the stable that had Atalic in 86. There's only a pound between them on time form rating out of the UK, and you've got a half kilo between them here.
It's a pound here.
Follow the trend.
There's not. Yeah, well, why not? I mean, a measure of Brashy's greatness in the pre-Royal Oak at Longchamp last year. He dead-heated with Indian Queen. Indian Queen last month won the Gold Cup at Royal Ascot.
Yes, it's good form.
Not a bad horse.
So how do you rate those two horses compared to Almirad, who came here two seasons back?
Oh, not far behind Almirad, and equally as good as Orthal, I would think.
Sure.
Gee, it's a big rap. Well, interestingly, Jim Bowler's given Better Loosen Up 61. It's the highest weight he's ever given a horse in the Melbourne Cup, a half a kilo more than Kingston Town. Now, that must mean Jim thinks he's a better horse, but we won't get into that, because we could argue forever. Jim, thank you very much. Good luck, and I'm not going to ask you for a tip. It wouldn't be fair. And Brian, we don't give tips this far in advance, so we won't be tipping, that's for sure. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Terrific
joining today. Yeah. We'll take a break and Tour de France after this.